Ky emision mbështetet nga Birra Peja, Pro Credit Bank, Eurokoha, Alba Ceramika, Bini, Gjirafa 50 dhe Cot Monte.
Cili është angazhimi i shtetit amerikan për ndihmuar Kosovën në luftën kundër korrupsionit? Çka me përfshirjen e SBA-s në çështjen e Kosovës dhe rajonit dhe a mund të konfirmohen shkrimet që kanë dalë lidhur me idenë që të rihapet çështja e ndarjes së Kosovës ose lëvizjes së kufijve? Çka me demarkimin e marrëveshjes dhe gjeturat e komisionit të caktuar nga Haradinaj dhe po ashtu si vlerësohet raundi i fundit i zgjedhjeve lokale dhe puna e qeverisë së Kosovës? Gjitha këto sot në një intervistë ekskluzive me ambasadorin e SBA-s në Kosovë, zotin Greg Delawie. Welcome to Rubikon, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you, Adrian. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So we are in a corruption week, anti-corruption week in Kosovo. The embassy is sponsoring the anti-corruption campaign. What are the key issues that the U.S. Embassy is involved in this area?
Okay. Well, we kicked things off pretty much yesterday. The United States, along with Quint ambassadors, the EU, special rep, several NGOs. We had a opening ceremony in the morning, and it was really terrific. There's a great week of programs. Most of them are run by non-governmental organizations, and they're addressing a variety of corruption issues. And I think this is so important because I think corruption is Kosovo's greatest challenge. We're looking to find more progress in the anti-corruption field from the judicial sector, from the governing sector, from the assembly, and to work on several important things. To be more concrete, though, there's several things we're looking for that I think are reasonable to expect in the relatively near term. First of all is a new law on the Office of the Disciplinary Council for judges and prosecutors. We have been working with this together with the government of Kosovo for the last year or so. The law is almost ready. It should appear in the Assembly soon, and I hope the members of Parliament will vote to approve it. Other things, there's a justice sector review that we're conducting with the Ministry of Justice to kind of look at the challenges that have emerged in Kosovo's laws and regulations over the almost 10 years since independence, and to come up with some reasonable solutions that could be pushed through or could be submitted to Parliament for consideration. We're hoping that electronic procurement, transparent procurement will kind of be rolled out across the country and through all municipalities, finalizing in the next month or so. This is so important because 40% of Kosovo's government budget relates to procurement. So you provide transparency, make it hard to be corrupt in the procurement field. You've done a lot to ensure that Kosovo's taxpayers' money is actually spent for the best possible purpose. Hiring based on merit for government jobs. This is anti-nepotism or anti-cronyism. Is another extremely important thing that I think everyone in government should be able to commit to. So these are not magic wand issues. These are things that people could do real things about in the relatively near future. This month for the Disciplinary Council and then a couple of months for procurement. And they would go an awful long way towards improving the lives of Kosovo citizens, giving them more confidence in their own government, and to advance Kosovo's goals of integration to Euro-Atlantic institutions.
And are you seeing willingness among institutional representatives or among the society to tackle issues of corruption, to fight corruption? Because as we say sometimes we can have good laws, but we need implementation of those laws.
We are having positive feedback. I mean, some of these things I wouldn't be pursuing if the government, for whatever reason, were resistant. Electronic procurement is going very well. It's complicated. It's probably more complicated than everybody expected at the beginning to implement, but it's doable. The laws on disciplinary council, we've got great cooperation with Kosovo institutions on that. So definitely I'm sensing cooperation. I'm sensing willingness. amongst many people that I deal with. And regarding society as a whole, I think we know from public opinion polls that citizens of Kosovo feel that the corruption and rule of law issues are the single most important problem for your country.
And sometimes we hear politicians saying that what people are talking about when talking about corruption is mostly perception and not based on cases that are factual. Because they sometimes also mention that if you ask individuals, do you know of certain case of corruptions, they will answer around 20% yes. But if you ask them directly, is Kosovo society corrupted or institutions, they will answer around 70% to 80% yes. So how to link these two?
Well, corruption is one of those issues where the terrific work of 10 honorable people can be undercut by one person. So because it's such an emotional issue for people, because they see their taxpayer dollars, going away to crooks, it's a very emotional issue, and therefore we kind of depend on everybody to do things right. Unfortunately, since there are people involved, not everybody always does everything right. So certainly there is a real issue, and certainly there's a perception issue. I cannot dispute your analysis that the perception issue is bigger than the real issue, but there is definitely a real issue. We see in the public opinion polls, they also, have you had to pay a bribe, in the last year, and a percentage, maybe, I don't remember, it's the 20 you mentioned, but a percentage says yes. So that's a real issue.
And what are your expectations after this week that we see of full capacity meetings and talking about corruption conferences, so people will be more aware of the problems and work harder to against them?
That's basically it. Raise awareness, push for solutions. I mean, that's what diplomats do. That's what I have to do. I have no magic wand, which is why I focused on the issues that you don't require one. So we raise awareness, we try to build support among the people, among the politicians, among the bureaucrats for reasonable solutions that we've worked out.
There were concerns sometimes in Kosovo with the new administration in Washington. How will the U.S. involvement in the region, and especially in context of Kosovo, look like? Did something change lately?
Well, clearly there's a new administration since January in the United States, but regarding support for Kosovo or U.S. involvement in the Balkans, the United States remains as committed as it has been for decades. And let me just narrow my comments to Kosovo, which I can speak, more directly about. There, excuse me. There's been tremendous support in the U.S. government, including from the new team for Kosovo. We have had recently a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense was here. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Hoyt Yee was here a couple of weeks ago. We had the U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kay Bailey Hutchinson, was here a month or so ago. We have had the President Thaci met with Vice President Pence in Washington a couple of months ago. We have numerous congressmen and senators visiting Kosovo over the last several months. So clearly there's a lot of interest in Kosovo. There is a lot of U.S. involvement in Kosovo, and I expect that to continue.
And nothing changed with the policy of U.S. towards Kosovo?
I can't think of anything in particular that has changed. Our policy, our support for Kosovo and for the Balkans in general has remained relatively consistent for decades, and I don't see any change.
There were speculation in the media, rumors that the division of Kosovo is again on the table. What do you have to say about it?
Well, for the United States, division of countries or redivision of countries along ethnic lines remains completely off the table. I don't think people understand the types of difficulties that would emerge from dividing populations along ethnic lines. There's a famous American author named H.L. Mencken who said something like, for every complex problem, there is a solution that is simple and clear and wrong. And I think that applies in this case. Looking for an easy solution to lop off a piece of one country and give it to another actually would make things far more complicated and far more dangerous. The United States continues to support Kosovo's territorial integrity along its existing borders, the borders it's had since it declared independence in 2008, and I certainly don't expect that to change.
Dialogue with Serbia, it is a phase when we do not have much certainty how it would look like. What is your take on the dialogue so far, and what is the vision how this dialogue should continue?
Well, the U.S. certainly supports the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia because we feel it is essential for both of those countries to make progress towards their European ambitions. It'd be foolish to deny that there's some kind of dialogue fatigue that's set in here, but I think that just makes it more important to re-energize the work on the dialogue. The United States has been involved in the dialogue since the beginning. It's, of course, led by the EU, facilitated by the EU, but with the strong support of the United States. We continue to support it. And I think it's important to recognize the dialogue has brought real things to real people in Kosovo. And the most recent example is the justice sector integration in the north that began just a month or so ago, bringing Kosovo rule of law to a population that hadn't really seen it for some time. So this is a practical element of dialogue that's improving the lives of Kosovo citizens. We could talk about other things too, like integrated border management along the Kosovo-Serbia border, the telephone code that's kind of phasing in over the next several months, Kosovo police integration. I mean, all of these things happened as a result of the dialogue. And, we will continue to support the dialogue and as best we can, in the coming months and the coming years as well.
But sometimes the impression is that all these agreements that have been reached are not being implemented and people are losing patience. For example, you mentioned the border management or the integration of the police. We had agreements on paper, but we don't see them being fulfilled completely.
Well, I have to disagree with you a bit there. The Kosovo police are integrated. In the north of Kosovo, the Kosovo police is in charge of law enforcement there. They work for the headquarters of the police, which is in Pristina. Regarding the border management, customs duties are being collected for goods that pass from Serbia into Kosovo. And according to the dialogue agreement, the money from the customs duties is being used to support projects, mostly in the north. There's a commission that deals with that. So, of course, there are other things that are kind of still hanging on, but the dialogue has brought important benefits to Kosovo, and I hope it continues to do so.
What about the request from Kosovo Prime Minister Ramush Haradinaj to have more U.S. involvement in the dialogue?
The United States has supported the dialogue from the beginning. We'll continue to do so today, and we'll continue to do so in the future.
Will there be a special envoy or something like that? The U.S. special envoy in dialogue?
I got nothing to announce. Right now, we are trying to work with the EU team, High Rep Mogherini's team, to figure out how we can best contribute to success of the dialogue that the EU is facilitating. We'll continue to do so, and we will change as we need to as circumstances change.
So the answer to the Prime Minister from the U.S. is we will continue to be involved as we were up till today.
The answer is that we will continue to be involved and support the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia.
We will take a short break for some advertisement, come back. Qëndroni me ne, kthehemi në pjesën e dytë shumë shpejt. Rubikon sot intervista me zotin Greg Delawie, ambasador I Shtetit e Bashkuara të Amerikës në Kosovë. Mr. Ambassador, this week we had the proceeding of the law on demarcation with the border with Montenegro from the government of Kosovo to Kosovo Assembly. We know about the division in the debate about this issue. What are your expectations for the border demarcation?
Mature states have to deal with complex issues and do them right. And as Kosovo approaches its 10th anniversary in just a couple months at this point, I think that's particularly true for Kosovo. So I understand this is a complex issue, but I think it's important for me to emphasize the United States government's position on this agreement has not changed. We announced in 2015 that the Border Demarcation Agreement Commission at that time had outlined the line between Kosovo and Montenegro that has been there since 1974, that they had done so correctly according to the experts at the State Department, and that we supported that agreement. So, I think that's important to recognize. The reason that it's 1974 is an important year is because that's when the Kosovo Constitution said that the territory of Kosovo consists of the territory of the municipalities of Kosovo. So, and of course the municipalities are based on the cadastral records of the municipalities. Now, I think this kind of new group basically endorsed that idea, although perhaps inadvertently.
Policy Commission.
Yes. So they basically said that, well, if you look at the cadastral records, then maybe you do come up with the same answer as the old commission. But clearly they didn't like that answer. And so they used a bunch of gibberish and Latin phrases to try to obscure.
You call them gibberish?
Gibberish. I don't know how to interpret that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going to translate that. Okay. We understand that.
Gibberish and Latin phrases to kind of obscure that conclusion. So, look, I understand people have strong opinions about this issue. I understand that sometimes we all wish that history had turned out a little bit different, but I think it's important to face this issue like most real issues realistically. And the reality here is that this is a very important issue for Kosovo's future. I want Kosovo to be able to earn visa liberalization. The EU has made it clear what has to happen to get there. This border agreement is one of those important issues. And I think it is clear that the answer for Kosovo, for the Kosovo Assembly, now that it is in the Assembly, is that it should pass the border demarcation agreement as is. I don't think people should rely on fake news or imaginary explanations of alternative realities to deal with important issues that affect the future of 2 million of Kosovo's people and their ability to travel more freely within Europe. Especially when the right answer is kind of in front of you and has been in front of you all along.
So who is doing this fake news in this issue?
I talked about the gibberish and the Latin phrases. I think it is important to recognize that the border demarcation agreement, the 2015 deal, is the right deal. It represents the border between Kosovo and Montenegro, the one that's been there since 1974, and it needs to be formalized in law by the Kosovo Assembly.
Again, Mr. Ambassador, can we say it as precise as we can? Does U.S. or your embassy ask to ratify the border demarcation that was signed in 2015, or you support some kind of new agreement with Montenegro? Because we hear different things from different government officials or different political party representatives.
The U.S. government, me, but also my government, supports the 2015 agreement as it was drafted and endorsed by the Montenegrin Assembly. That's the right line. That's the one that Kosovo's Assembly should also ratify. It's the line that's existed between the two countries since they were provinces or autonomous republics. and it is the line that's on Kosovo's flag. It's the right line.
And you expect the MPs in Kosovo Assembly to vote for it?
I certainly hope the MPs will vote for it. This is something that's in the interest of Kosovo citizens the Kosovo Assembly gets right. And I hope that members of parliament will put aside their political considerations and vote in favor of Kosovo's people.
What will happen if they will not vote in favor of this demarcation?
You know, the first thing they teach you in diplomacy school is not to answer hypothetical questions. So I'm going to give that one a pass. I'm going to work to get the right answer.
So you're positive that this demarcation issue will pass in the Kosovo Assembly?
I am going to work as hard as I can to help persuade members of parliament that they should approve this existing agreement.
And what about Prime Minister Haradinaj, who still is saying that he is not convinced that Kosovo is not losing ground, not losing land?
The United States is persuaded that the 2015 agreement is the right agreement.
And Kosovo is not losing any land?
Kosovo is not losing any land.
How do you evaluate the work of the new government? It's almost 100 years of a Haradinaj government.
Days.
Days. Sorry for that.
Look, I'm not here to grade governments. But there's a sense of energy. That's positive. The members of the coalition government seem to be working pretty well together. So that's positive. The Assembly started to pass a couple of laws, especially the law on religious freedom, which we support strongly. They're working the budget. They're starting to do important things. So those are positive elements. I'm pleased that the way that the government and governing institutions, including the presidency, are out in the country, kind of explaining about the Kosovo Security Force transformation proposal and trying to explain that to people, because I think the citizens of Kosovo need more information on that issue. So those are important issues. I think it is important for the government to continue to work on all these things. I think it's important for the government to work on the European reform agenda, which is very important to the EU, and therefore it's important to Kosovo's future. I think it's important for Kosovo to be able to demonstrate, for the government to be able to demonstrate to Brussels that it can get things done that are positive for Kosovo citizens and in line with European ideas and rules. So, those are all elements that I think are positive or should be worked on.
What about the size of the government? There is much criticism about having 21 ministries and also like more than 60 deputy ministers in the government.
It's not for me to tell Kosovo exactly how to run its government. There are 2 million U.S. government employees. We, of course, have a much bigger country. But, that's not my job.
How do you see the results of local elections? Everything that was during the election campaign, the election day, and everything that came after?
Well, let's start with election day, because I think election day went really well. Both election days. In fact, let's just all the election days for 2017. This is the best election year Kosovo's ever had. And, I think when everything doesn't go exactly right, it's important to keep in mind that there is a lot of growth in Kosovo, including Kosovo's democracy. And many countries would be envious of the way Kosovo ran its elections during 2017. So election days were great in general. There were a couple of problems, most of which were spotted and dealt with by Kosovo institutions, and those are good things. I think in the run-up to election days, in the majority community, things were pretty good. In the minority communities, as I've said previously, I was disappointed that there was not more democracy present, that there were not more candidates in some of the minority municipalities. It's hard to have a democratic election with only one candidate. It's hard to have a democratic election when foreigners are interfering in your campaign. So, that's a challenge. We have to keep working on that. But overall, I feel pretty positive about the local elections. Now, I'd certainly call on all of Kosovo's officials, both the national government officials, the local government officials. Now the election period is pretty much over, except for Istok. I think it's important for people to kind of buckle down and say, how am I going to help my citizens, all of Kosovo's citizens, for which I'm responsible for, to get important stuff done for them. Because now the politics of elections is over. It's time for all these people who are picked by the voters to start to work for the voters. And I hope they'll do so.
Ambassador Delawie, thank you for the interview.
You're quite welcome, Adriana. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Ky emision mbështetet nga Birrapea, ProCredit Bank, Eurokoha, Alba Ceramika, Bini, Gjirafa 50 dhe Cot Monte.